Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Goes to 11 Vice Squad. My name is Bryce Miller, and I am your Sunday host. After you watch this clip, head over to our awesome online stores at fishingandoutdoors.ca or fishingandoutdoors.net for U.S. and international shoppers. And go shop our sponsors' products and so much more. So today in the Vise, I'm going to show you how to tie a semi-seal dungeon-style fly. We're going to start out with a size 8 hook, 4x long. We're going to line this whole hook with 0.02 lead wire. By adding this lead wire on this articulated fly, we're going to keep the back end of the fly keeled to add a more lifelike movement rather than an up and down movement. More of a diagonal movement than anything. We got that lead wire, that's probably, 10-15 wraps. And we're going to lay a little bit of super glue over top of those wraps and then start our thread. Bodkin, even it all out. Now we're going to start our thread in the beginning. Got a pretty heavy thread today. I like it for these dungeon style flies with the deer hair head. Makes me feel like I have a little more control over it. Now we're going to give it a second, make sure that glue sets in. Alright, now we're going to plan ahead a little bit on this fly. When we add this second hook, we're going to keep the lead eyes on top of the hook shank. That way it is jigged and this hook will be facing like that in the water. Which means we want to put our tobacco brown marabou on the top here, since I want it on the top of the fly. A little bit past the hook itself. Tie it in. Take your fingers, make sure it peels under. Perfect. Flip back over. We're going to tie in Sculpin olive marabou feather up here on the top. Add that multicolored tail. We're going to keep this same pattern throughout the entire fly. You guys will see what I mean a little bit more as we keep going. But we're always going to keep that tobacco brown on the bottom, or top, sorry, and the olive in the bottom. Off any ends you have that are kind of sneaking away. Lay down that body over top of the lead. Back. Alright. Now this is kind of a complex twist method of this fly, so we're going to start with our hackle feather, and since we're going to tie it in over here and not in the front, we're actually going to pull it down and tie it in from the tip. That way we got a taper along the hook. Snip that real quick. And then we're going to take a dubbing loop, a little bit of movement there, dubbing loop that we're going to fill with semi-seal, and then we're going to use a little trick here, okay? First of all, let's get our dubbing loop, dubbing twister, and semi-seal in deep leach color, I have an olive color, match the fly. I'm actually going to tear it a couple times. That way it's shorter for this back hook. Put it in. We're going to do that a couple times. That way we can make sure we can make it the whole way. Spin. Now that we spun it, we're going to tease it out with our dubbing brush here. If you do not have a dubbing brush, you don't need anything special. I have this wooden stick with a this is part of a Velcro that I'm teasing this out with. You really don't need anything fancy if you can't afford it or you just don't have it yet. And then we're going to take our hackle pliers, and see if I can make this visible for you guys. We're going to grab right there where the feather and the loop come together with the hackle pliers, and then snip off underneath of it. That way we're holding both with the hackle pliers. Alright, so now we're going to wrap just like we would on a woolly bugger, only we're wrapping both forward. That way, it doesn't look like much at the moment until we tease it back out here in a second. Flip our hook, tie it off. A little messy here for a second, but it's okay. Once we trim, it'll all come back out. Now that we have that, tease it right back out with our dubbing brush. Pretty heavy right here. Take a bodkin, pull it out. One of the thicker parts. There we go. Try to sneak out on us. Okay. Turn that off real quick. Alright. Look on that head a little bit. Whip finish, or not whip finish, half edge finish off. Tease it one more time. Alright, now we're gonna add a couple more and then tease it out one more time. Half hitch off. Snip. Add a little bit of super glue, that way you know that it is stay put. You're gonna catch big fish on this, so you're gonna tend to get at it with their teeth. Make sure you have a little bit of super glue here and there, that way it's gonna stay put. That is your back side of this fly. Take it off the vise real quick. Then we're going to put it on our bigger hook. It's a size 6, 4x long once again. Tie thread in. Snip there. We're going to lay down a little bit of super glue throughout the whole shank, to help hold that initial thread since it's so slippery. Now I'm going to take this 20-pound carp line. That's what I like to use for articulation. Nothing's going to break your 20-pound carp line unless you're using some ridiculous tippet, so you're safe with it. Relatively inexpensive. And I personally think it lets a little bit more movement than the articulation wire. We're going to tie in this one end down. We're going to thread on our hook that we just tied on, back side of this fly. Tie it up, and we're going to pull these back and tie it once again. That way they're not going to slip out on us. Even though we got the super glue there, it really shouldn't. Heavy wraps as a second precaution. Awesome. Just cover those ends. All right. Bring it down right into the bend of the hook. Not often do I tie into the bend of the hook, but with these articulated flies, make sure that they are well placed. Go into the bend of the hook a little bit. Now we're going to flip the fly again and tie in our brown, tobacco brown marabou once again. You want this to come just before, about the middle of the second hook. You can see the measurement there. Pinch it, tie it in. And flip it back over, and we're going to tie it in our Sculpin olive marabou feather. Same length, measure them out together. And tie it off, or cut it off. Perfect. We're going to tie in our lead eyes first. Put the hook shank right about there. A few, maybe like 1 centimeter behind the eye of the hook. We're going to tie in yellow lead eyes. We're going to cross over and over again. And then we're going to add what's called a frap. This is across these bottom wraps. It's going to tighten them down. One more time. And we're going to frap. Perfect. So once again, since we have those lead eyes where we do, when you flip the hook, or when the fly is in the water, it's going to flip the hook and ride like that, just like our Clouser minnow a few weeks ago. And that will give it a jigged look in the water, kind of make it jump. And that jigged look will really get the fish going. So we're going to bring our thread back to where we tied in the marabou, and we're going to do the same thing that we did with the back hook. So we got hackle feather right here. These are brown hackle feathers. I guess I didn't say that earlier, but obviously you guys can kind of see that. Just kind of fitting the whole olive and brown look of this fly. Great for smallmouth, great for trout this time of year. Brown trout should be all over it right now as they get ready to spawn. Enjoy them now before they start spawning, that way we're not bothering them then. So we're going to start our other dubbing loop. This one's going to be slightly longer since we have a little bit more shank to deal with here. Try to even this out a little bit, but it's not that important with the dubbing loop. So we're going to get our dubbing loop tool again, grab it, and this time we're not going to tear the semi-seal before we put it in. We keep it at full length since it's going to add a little bit more taper to our fly. You can also use a little bit of dubbing wax here. I don't have any dubbing wax at the moment, but it would help keep this stuff in place, especially when you go to twist it. I don't have too much problems, but I've definitely seen times when it's been useful to have, especially if you're twisting like hairs or stuff. Spin. Oops, got my finger in that. Twist it again. Then we're going to tease it back out. Ooh. There we go. Then once again, we're going to grab it with our hackle pliers at the lowest point that we can. Snip off at the bottom. And we are just going to polymer along the hook shank, back wherever we can. We have the perfect length right there, right below, right behind the eyes. Trim it off, and we're going to tease it out again just like we did before. Bring our thread around. We're going to tie in marabou one more time, as we've been doing. Tobacco brown on top. On top. Cut it off as close as we can this time. One wrap across again. Really make sure it's down. Not gonna slip out on you. And then olive marabou on top. Pull them back a little bit. Make sure you tie in the ends. Alright, now here's the trickiest part of this entire fly. You have your deer hair head. I personally was very intimidated by deer hair heads at first. Tried them a couple times, turned out terrible. The best advice I can give you right now is to just do more and more, keep trying. Because the more you do, the better and easier it gets. So we're going to start off with just a dab of super glue over top of these eyes before we get to that. Keep them in place here when you catch a big fish. We got our rubber legs that we're going to tie in. So you want to measure them out to about just past the articulation point. Dropped them. Doing 3 of them. Measure them out just past the articulation point. Way they have room to move. A couple wraps. And then pull them over. Tie them in on that side. Now cut them to length so that they're the same. To do that, you just pull them down. Should hang the same lengths. Okay. Now we're ready for the deer hair head. So we're going to stack this first bunch. Got about a pencil width in deer hair. Deer hair is particularly annoying to stack just because it's a little bit thinner than elk hair. They like to get all over the place. We're going to stack it. Okay. All those ends are aligned. And we're going to measure it out with this marabou that we have here. About the same length, which should be about half of the length of that hook shank. Tie it in on the top. like a stimulator that we did. Add a couple wraps through the hair, and we're going to spin over the hook and do the other side. Make sure everything's out of your way. Get another bunch of deer hair. Grab all your ends there. Keep them aligned. Tie them in just like we did the other ones, the length of the marabou. Pull this back. Oops. See what I did already. Trap some of that hair. Bodkin is a great tool for pulling that back out of there when you realize you did. That way your head looks right. Alright, now pull it back. Running it through some of the hair here and there. That way you really get it planted. There you have the first step, your head. Bring your thread back in front of the eyes, but as close to them as you can. And this time we're going to take actually a little bit bigger stack of hair. Maybe like 1.5 pencil lengths, or pencil widths. Cut it off with the hide. And this time we're actually going to cut the points off. Since we don't, the tips off, since we don't need them. So you have your deer hair looking like that on both sides. And we're just going to center it on the hook shank. Tie it in a couple really tight wraps. Get on top of the hook. And then some, actually sorry, we're not going to go through it yet. Just right on top. Flip it over, and now we're going to do a second stack, the same size. Cut the tips off. Lay them on top. Bring your thread right through it. Alright, so now we're just going to slowly pull some of it back as we run our thread through the rest of the hair that's there. And a little thing I like to do here is I like to grab my hair packer, which I actually don't have on hand at the moment. Give me 1 second. I'll grab my hair packer right behind the eye, the hook. Just bring it back just a little bit. Should be a little bit of squeeze room there. Make it a little bit easier to finish off the fly without crowding the eye. Half hitch off, a few of them. Alright guys, now this, my least favorite part of this fly. So we need to trim this deer hair. Obviously if you've seen a dungeon style fly, it does not look like that. So the first step in trimming this deer hair, and bear with me, I normally would turn the vise looking at me, but for you guys' viewing, I'm going to try to do it with it not facing me. So what I like to do first is I bend my razor here. I go nice and wide around the eye. I don't get down to the eye yet. We're staying wide because little by little we can make this fly rather than quickly messing it up. It's a good way to ruin a long time of work. Alright, we got that side. We're going to go to the other eye. Slowly but surely taking off enough we find that eye. Alright. Another quick lesson that I learned the hard way is you want these heads to be big. If you think that the head of this fly is too big, then you probably are about right. You got it at the right point. If you keep trimming it because you think it's too big, you're going to see it and you're going to be like, dang it, messed it up. Then you're going to be back at the vise for another hour. So now we're going to trim the bottom of this fly. This one can be a little bit more flat, but not perfectly flat. Bring your razor up that way. Make sure you don't get your tips in there. Alright, we can always come back to that if it's not exactly how you want it, but slowly but steady. Slow and steady wins the race. That was the turtle and the hare. Alright, so now we're going to bend it a lot more to make the top of this head. Very little off of it. You do not want to over trim. You don't want to get your tips in there. So be careful there. If you feel like your razor's getting a little dull, flip to the other side. I've already used this razor a couple times, so it's about time. But when you do that, make sure that you don't start over trimming because you were overcompensating before. Alright, now we got this fly almost done. We have a lot of hairs still in there that don't have tips. At this point, I like to take my curved tip squeeze scissors from Anadromous. Not usually your deer hair type thing, but since they're curved, they're really good for picking out the right hairs. I'm going to do that real quick. Alright, another thing with this curved scissors, if you feel like you didn't quite get that contour quite right on the head, they will keep a nice even trim throughout. Easier to come from the front. They will just make sure, tidy it up. Anadromous has a thing of a pack of 3 hair scissors that would work really well for this too. Some guys that have them really like them. If you don't have a razor, that's definitely the way to go then. You trim it a lot easier. Keep that in mind. And there you have it, your semi-seal Dudgeon style fly. Perfect. Try to brush it out, but don't hook yourself in that back hook. Thank you for watching today's segment. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're looking to buy some great outdoor gear, fishing gear, or even fly tying supplies, go visit our store at www.fishingandoutdoors.ca or fishingandoutdoors.net for US and international shoppers. Please give this video a thumbs up, like, and also hit that subscribe button and little reminder bell so you don't miss any future episodes. Thank you again. I look forward to seeing you back here next week.